Martin speak about some project I developed since I think 5 or 6 years ago. I work a lot with technology before, since 10 years ago and more. And I have a residency in the center of France 5 years ago. And I want to work on landscape and on connection with the territory, because I have a background of geography. I study history and geography, and I teach also geography. And my artistic work was very different than my universitary background, you know. But I really want to reconnect question about landscape and territories and land, and I want to perform with that. So I begin to make a performance in nature, alone, and only with my camera, and and I continue this work last year also, and I make it was very strange, because this project 5 years ago, the name in French is au milieu de nulle part, dans le centre de tout. It's in the middle of nowhere, at the center of everything, you know, because the center of France, it's like a desert. You know, there is not a lot of population and not a lot of activity. It's very rural, and I begin to write a kind of science fiction poetry about the disappearing of people, about the fact that people can disappear on Earth. And I work with it was a complete opposite of what I'm doing with technology and public. I want to perform with nobody, and just with trees and mountains and river and lake, and I continue last year. And when there is a confinement, it was so strange, because it was like in my dream, or when everybody is nowhere, is disappear, and the nature and forest and and landscape was very empty of people. And but I keep it in house. I don't go. I don't perform. But yes, it's a part of my work. I really want to continue, and I make video, and now I'm working on sound for this video, because it's video with silence, and I don't know. I make an exhibition with just silence, but I think I want to mix sound with this work on body. And I was very inspired by buto dance and a practice of body. It's body weather, and it's some people I met. It's dancer. They develop this work with in a link with a famous buto dancer. And his name is on my tongue. It will come back. And I'm not a dancer, but I make a lot of dance when I was young, classical dance, you know. And I stopped dance because I feel that I was not a good dancer, because you know, to be a classical dancer, it's so hard, it's so difficult, and it make me like I really reject dance because of that. And 10 years ago, I really want to reconnect to to work with my body, to have another conscience. And I have the chance to meet some people who work with Buto and body weather, and I say, okay, it's so close that all what I want to do, to work on what you feel inside your body, very precisely, not to make performance in a sense of you know, be very strong and be very like a big dancer that who can doing extraordinary thing with his body, but it's a work on a very deep sensation of your with the materiality of your body. And it's not, it can, there is a spirituality, but it can be also very concrete. And for me, it was like when I discovered concrete poetry, you know, and concrete music. It's, you work with what you are, what you have in your hand, and what you can find just near you, just front of you. If it's a tree, it's a tree. If it's a wall, it's a wall. It's if the weather is sunny or cloudy, you can work with all these elements, and your body, it's an element among everything. And for me, it was very, and I know there is not a lot of links between Buto dancing and concrete poesy or sound poetry, but the Buto dance, it's an avant-garde also in in Japan. It's a dance that break all the tradition of Japan. It's a real revolution, but it's not a revolution, group revolution. It's a individual revolution, and I was very curious of discover this practice, but it's an element for my performance now.
Yeah, and you say already like you work a lot with high technology, different screens and different like actions with your body and the images of some letters like surrounding you. Mm-hmm. How are you connecting now that your new experience, like kind of like a nature sensitive concrete poetry with that kind of digital, I don't know, more high technology thing that you make already? I know you always make like that kind of poetic force in your work, but how have you ever tried that connection or not? Not yet.
I don't completely understand your question because of the quality of sound. Voilà, dis-le en français.
Ouais. En fait, c'est que je t'ai vu, enfin, tu as dû travailler tous les trucs de la haute technologie avec des lettres sur ton corps, plusieurs écrans, avec différents haut-parleurs, tu vois, de la haute pointe technologique, comme des performances que je t'ai vues au Cube, ou des choses comme ça, tu vois. Il n'y a pas si longtemps que ça, il y a 3 ans.
Oui.
Et là, je vois que tu fais des choses très précises et plus sensitives avec les choses que tu trouves dans l'espace un peu sauvage,
oui.
Et concrète, tu vois, une poésie concrète du sauvage avec cette poétique concrète du du cuit, en fait. C'est comme les crues et les cuits, de Lévi-Strauss. Tu vois, comment tu
Oui,
connectes ça? Non, c'est ça la
oui.
question. Bon, si tu l'as connecté, ou si tu es en train de la connecter, ou pas encore, ou c'est des choses séparées, je sais pas.
No, for me, it's a good question because what I discover, I realize that what interests to me it's how the body um, can find a new behavior or new way of being in a in a in a certain environment. And we live with in different environments. We live with technology, and we live also with trees and wind and sky. And for me, there is not an opposition between both. I think the perhaps the Japanese culture is very precise about that. They don't make a difference between technology and humanity. And for me, if I have some project with technology because I want to find a way to write with sound and images, but I also want to find connection with different natural elements. So it's both different part of my work, but it's not opposition.
I don't know, but the question is how you can connect them. You can how you can like practically if you already start to make some intention of connections of those things, or you keep it like two different ways of two different horses of your same chariot. I don't know.
Yeah.
It translates in French. Si tu, en fait, si tu as déjà commencé à connecter ces deux mondes-là, ou tu les gardes comme deux chevaux de ton même chariot, tu vois.
Oui.
C'est ce que c'est deux choses parallèles qui avancent l'une et avancent l'autre, ils font avancer ensemble, et tu les connectes, ou tu les laisses séparer, ou tu sais pas encore. C'est juste une question, je ne sais pas.
Yeah. I think they work in parallel, but also there is some connection. For the video I make on landscape, I want to create an installation with so it's image and with sound, and the connection is in both different parts of my work. I think it's always I try to create a transformation of it's a very, I don't know, perhaps I can say ritual or initiatic processus to I put myself in a certain condition, and I want to transform that, you know. And when I am in a near lake or with trees, what these elements are doing to me, you know. And with technology, it's the same thing. We are always we are comment on dit, completely sometimes
Français, si tu veux.
oui, on est complètement enfermé parfois,
Ah.
ou très déterminé par la technique,
Yeah.
tu vois. On est it's technology, it's like a dispositif that always transform ourselves, and how we can work with that to not become a victim, or not become just a consumer, you know, not become because sometimes the technology is like a vampire around us. It's take our force, they take our energy, and how we can use this dispositif to make a sort of revolution, to say, okay, you want to dominate, but I will try to make the contrary. I will use the element that, comment dire en anglais, qui nous contraignent, tu vois, qui nous...
The thing that put us like in a kind of jail, or like a kind of not
yeah.
like a kind of format. What?
A constraint.
A constraint.
Yeah, a constraint. And how we can go out, not go outside, but work with that to become more stronger and to develop an energy that can liberate ourselves, you know.
Yeah. Then if I understand, do you feel that the new experience that you have with poetry, that in like kind of natural founding things in the middle of nothing, enfin, l'expérience que tu as maintenant de trouver, tu vois, de la poésie dans des choses que tu rencontres quotidiennement,
oui,
à la montagne, tu vois, c'est pas, l'herbe, la mer, le mur, ça te donne une espèce de liberté par rapport à la technologie. C'est ça?
Oui, because when you work with computers and sound, and you need a lot of you always it's, for me, there is two sides to face, you know. You this technology can liberate, can allow yourself to be more stronger when you take a microphone and you make an effect and your voice become higher than your natural voice. And for me, when I discover all this technique, it was very a liberation. It's wow, we can be higher, we can be it was technology for life for me. But also it's also technology, you know.
It's so lovely because when you speak,
sometimes I want to make projects that when I feel that I can be autonomous, I can have an autonomy, you know, and I don't want to depend. And it's also linked to my history, because I work with my husband, and we work together, and I think I create a lot of things in this relation, and now this relation is finished, and I have to also to find another way to work with that. So it's also very personal, but we always create with people, and we create with love and with our story. So I for me, it's also very, I think there is something very feministic also, because when you work with digital art and technology, there is a lot of men, and it's changing now, and you are more and more women, but it's the technology was really there is a masculine way to work with technology for me, and I realized that I was in a position of not domination, but it was complex, you know. And for me, yeah, I want to be more to be more autonomous.
Yeah, if I understand that you say, because you,
It's not easy
you
to.
huh? Sorry. Let's continue. I translate that later.
Yeah, I don't know, but um, hmm, there is a lot of thing to. We can speak a lot of about that. I don't know, but I meet a lot of artists, women artists, and more we speak, more and more we realize that um, yeah, there is a kind of supremacy of masculine way to work with technology,
And
and
do you, if I understand, do you make like a kind of opposition or difference between like technology of man's and nature of woman, something or like or feminine nature, or maybe femininity is more connected to nature and masculinity more to technology, or what do you think?
it's too simple to say that because uh, I think the technology have been captured by men and by a certain way of working, and what it's important is to prove that your machine is better, is stronger. You know, it's a very there is a virility in in technology, and I think no, women are not more close to nature. Uh, they are just a different um, way to work with that. But there is a lot of women who work with technology, but yeah, it's a different way. It's more collaborative, or it's more sometimes sensitive, or it's not to be to make demonstration, you know, of your energy, of your power, you know.
I would
And
like to add something to that, because what I'm getting of what you're saying is this idea to show off the technology, like or to show it like kind of power. And we have talked in other sessions that you can use technology, of course, in different ways, but you can use it for more random possibilities or for its mistakes, whatever. But it's great that you talk about this. I talk a lot with some
yeah,
some friend musicians that work in some female musicians that work in electronic music. And for example, they tell me that when they go to when they are mixing or recording, for example, if they want to talk to the engineer, the engineer talks to the male producer, not
yeah,
the female producer. It's really absurd, but one of them told me that going to a music studio is like going to when you go to repair a garage, when you go to repair a car. Like there are only men, and they have posters of naked women in the in the walls. But
Making poetry in the
yeah,
country,
yeah. So
naked.
it's very interesting, and nowadays there's there's a great movement in electronic music, at least, and and in other and in other parts, of course, about this, and about what you say, that like to think about the relationship with the technology in other ways, and not also as like a kind of secret knowledge that you want to keep it for yourself, because that's another typical position, like you say, to spread it, to share it, to play more freely with it, I think.
yeah. I don't want to be caricatural, you know, but I think it's an experience that we realize during year and year, and yeah, it's during a long time. I feel like I was always I don't understand nothing. I feel always inferior than men, and I have to change my position. I say, okay, we can create, even if we are not professional or very very we know everything about technology, and this race on progress, technical progress, everything every time. Sorry. Tired me, and I want to work differently. But now I make a project with another digital artist whose name is Antoine Schmidt, and who is a programmer, and I don't know how can I say, he's very high programmer, but he never say I never feel I am inferior. We speak a different language, and we meet each other on the artistic project, and we create a performance about pleasure. And the idea, the pitch, it's we wanted to try to make how we say in English, to faire jouir, comme on dit, faire jouir, Martin. I don't say in English.
C'est trop.
Faire jouir une créature numérique. To make a digital creature feel the pleasure.
Joy.
Yeah, like a joy.
From joy. The joy of take on joy.
Yeah, and we want to create a dialogue and a communication between a human body and a kind of digital body that can feel, that can have sensations with modelization of hormonal behavior. So
sorry, but because I lost a little time. But you may jouir in the sexual sense.
Yeah, in the sexual and sensitive sense.
Have an orgasm
So this creature have a hormonal behavior and a sound behavior. And I create the sound for this creature, and it is projected on me. So I can't see it. I can see I can see a little his movement, but I hear it. So with sound, I can say, okay, she's happy. She wants more caress, or she wants okay, she's very exciting, and we create a dance together. And, it's my I am on.
I like very much that idea of playing with machines in a more playful, sensual way, maybe. I know some musicians that would like to make love to their synthesizers. They get really excited with them and get crazy. I know a couple.
Like your feeling who arrived here.
And I think one of the possibilities that at least I find really exciting is, the softwares and hardware are usually designed to do specific things, right? And the people who design them are thinking in one kind of product. For example, music software is very good for making a specific kind of music or whatever. But I think what's really funny and inspiring is to use them for other possibilities that have not been considered. And in that way, I think is when lots of great surprises appear. I mean, to approach, it's not only to when we talk about experimental poetry or experimental art or whatever, I think it's not only doing strange things, but also to trying different methodologies, different ways of thinking, different ways of collaborating. I think it's you can take it in a deeper sense, that experimental or whatever attitude.
Yeah, and for me, what I'm very always interested in working with digital language, because what allow this language is, for me, it's something which can be very alive. I don't know, very vivant, and always different when it's generative. And I really love generative art, because it's something that which never stop, and it's like life and movement of life, and it's a way I really want to. Yeah, I want to find other things in this way, and but since 3 years ago, and I work more and more on composition, sound composition. So it's not generative, but it's another way to write, because I make a lot of performance and projects that on improvisation and generativity, and I also feel the necessity to fix some things, and to create composition, and yeah. So I work on the two sides, and I need to write fix things more and more, but I'm always on interested in movement and improvisation and generativity, etc. Yeah.
That is why I think you always find some wonderful husband, technology man, like bringing you like the masculinity of that technology high, and you are in that kind of wild, and at the same time you put yourself in technology, and you make that technology transform your flesh or your being. Tu translate en français, de dire, enfin une blague, de que c'est pour ça que tu trouves toujours des hyper beaux copains, maris dans la technologie, parce qu'ils sont, tu vois, t'apportent peut-être ça, et toi tu peux garder ce côté sauvage de la joie, tu vois, de la liberté, de ce côté naturel qui te porte au digital, en fait.
Ouais. Oui, yeah, I think we are always, when, I don't know, when we make art, perhaps, on poetry, we always we always want to find something we don't have, or something we desire, or something to be different of ourselves, and everybody, there is a lot of comment on dit, recommendation that we say, people say you have to be yourself, you have to be find yourself, but for me, we have to find another self. We have to try to be always different of what we are, or we are always different of what we of what we think you are, It's not what you are, it's never clear. So I something art, it's when, for me, I create a lot of things thanks people I met. And I say, when we met great artists and performer, musician, we it's always wonderful, because we say, wow, we can be like that, you know. And it's very strong. And I'm very happy to meet so different people so different, that common people, and that propose a very specific way of being, and to that people who are able to invent themselves. And I think art, it's for that. It's to invent always a new way of being. It's perhaps it's our nature to adapt ourselves. And I think art and poetry, it's my way to adapt to this crazy world. To it's an only way I find to exist on this planet. And if we accept the dominant way comment on dit? How? Tu vois, Martin, si on accepte la façon dont on nous oblige à d'être, c'est pas possible, tu vois. We have to
we accept the direction that they want to give us, like a pathway to follow. It's not possible.
Yeah. Like pattern, we have to transform, or to make disjoncter, tu vois. ces patterns de vie. Voilà.
Bleeding or
yes.
She said, like, if the system propose us to be like that, like in a specific pattern, for Hortense, like poetry and art is the only way to being in that kind of, I don't know, resistance. You didn't say that, but it's a kind of like you split, you make a dissociation of that kind of direction. You say, yeah, you want I go that way, I provide of that energy, but I go other way, you know, like that is beautiful. It made me seem like in a little text of Freud, call it like the poet and the fantasy, like a poet and fantasy. I don't know how to say it in English, but he said that, you know, the neurotical say no to his own desire, and he's just keep it in rules, you know, like I'm neurotical and make my rules, but my desire is for another life. And I psychologically say no, my desire is my desire. I nothing with that kind of reality or pattern, but I like disconnect of that. You know, the autistic people. I'm just in my own desire, and I don't have a damn for you. And the poet that's made like the psychotic, I keep my desire, but I create a new way, my own way in a way, but with the possibility that all the people identify to that way and continue in that way, you know, like with open new possibilities of reality in a way, but new kind of different universe.
Yeah.
Poetry, you know?
Yeah, like, and when I met, I was young. I was just 17 or 18, and I discovered that we can write, you know, differently than what I learned at school. But I love Rimbaud and Verlaine, and I really love all this poetry. But when I discover that we can write just with sound, and we can write like Chopin or Dufresne, and etc. It was so big liberation, you know, that I always want to find this kind of way to, but it's not to live in another world. It's to work with what this world and what with system give to us, and to transform it. It's very like a alchemic processus, you know, to make very dark and very poor materials, and to transform that, and to be able to make other things with that. For me, it's why I'm trying. I don't know.
I think the people in the like Edwin and Lazal want to speak about it. Just like feel you free to introduce yourself and to make your question and go on.
We were thinking about the idea of the neurotic inside the poet, and takes one to know one, so you need.
And the psychosis, you know, because in the neurosis, you like make a kind of repression of your desire, but in psychosis, you will not repress your desire. You're like eliminate reality. You're just in your own desire. But the poet make like another step. He like the psychotic, like reality is not my stuff, but I make a new reality. And you can like surrealism, I don't know, like I create a new kind of position in the world, like an ethical position. I feel that poetry is more like being a poet, like to write poetry, you know, more like an ethical position in the world. And I'm not like, say, Hortense, I'm not accepting your path, but I'm not completely kicked you off. I will create a new proposition, you know, of living. That is how I understand that the wonderful text of fire, when we see of the best.
Yeah, and we are using the same materials. Sorry, I mean, we are using the same words, the same sounds that other poets have used long ago, and it's interesting not to think like experimental poetry or experimental art is like being on another side, and that you're trying to fight with other kind of art. I mean, as you said, I love reading all kinds of poetry, hearing all kinds of music, and what I like when you have like this more open or experimental approach is also that you can find very different dimensions in some canonical poets, for example. I mean, they're usually more interesting than these more closed versions we already know. But sorry.
No, I was saying that there's I think a poet or even an artist, not just a writer, interested in this other reality, has to be in touch with the metaphysical, with the idea of transformation, so that you become the thing you're writing about. So a poet understands that I can become the thunder, I can become the light, I can become the tree, I can become the thought, and that becomes this a transformation inside yourself. So in that way you connect to nature, connect to the elements around you in a way that other people can't. And because of that, there's more neurosis and more confusion. But I think it's a welcome confusion. I think either confusion or it's a way to kind of enter the world that we're in, understanding that we are part of the world in ways that other people don't understand how they're part of the world. I think we know, poets know that you'll allow yourself that transformation with everything that you write or everything that you become, so that you're part of what you're writing about, and that creates new poems and new ideas, and a new self, a new other person inside that's waiting to just come out, you know.
Yeah.
Also understand from what Felipe is saying is with experimental approach to that, it's just a way of channeling that neurosis just as natural as nature is, and to communicate that just equally everything, the sounds, the neurosis, the nature, whatever happens inside.
But I don't have the you know, I think on a lot of avant-garde movements and avant-garde artistic movements, they want to create a real revolution, and like sometimes it was a little like new form of ideology, and they have a big confidence in their own truth, you know, that what I'm doing is the truth. And you can, when you read some, even in Dada, or not very Fluxus, but in Lettrism, you have a very combative way to say, okay, I am like that, I want to create a new language, and this language will be a liberation for everybody. I think we are we are, it's a kind of very masculine way for me sometimes, and I love all these poets really, but I think we can now be more simple with creating with more humility, and not to say that I'm fine. I'm not fine the truth, you know. I just I think, yeah, we can even create art. For me, make on a landscape in the center of France. It's in the fiction I want to write. It's the performance I'm doing. It's some kind of ritual to learn how to disappear, how to not only to say, yeah, I'm here and I'm a poet or I'm an artist and I found the truth of life, but just to say, okay, I can be part of everything, and I can learn with art how to take a good place, and to have a ethical position, and to say, okay, it's a way, it's a long way, and perhaps it's a way to learn how to die, or to learn how to just be an element among everything. It's my English is very simple, so
yeah, but I guess it's easier to talk English, for example, when both people have it like a second language. So you really have to use very few words, and
you can speak in French, and all with Felipe will translate.
Yeah.
Okay.
but I like very much talking in English with people from not English speaking countries.
Okay. But
yeah, that is when I arrived to France. For me, was really wonderful, because I didn't understand at all French.
Really?
Just like I have like a je, tu, and someone invited me to like make a performance, and in a moment, and I just like, I don't know how to speak, and I just like take an egg in a boil it like hot water, and I start to eat the egg like like that, and the people from the public say, you are some poet, and I went, what? And I feel myself like welcome. You are receiving in a family of like people crazy, like I went over your feeling, no. All the family like receive you. You are a member of us because you're speaking in language, like your language in a way. That is why I think the title of that kind of meeting is language is a virus, in the way like maybe language is not the only way to make poetry.
Yeah.
And that is touch. Just when you say, I find things in the streets, I find things when I walk in, I find things when I'm discovering things,
Yeah.
Me, I'm much more closer to music than literature in a way, because I think that poetry, you have not a signification, music, you have not signification, then you have a freedom of movement and vibration. Then in a way, how do you imagine, like, I know your daughter, like Esther, he made like she imagined like some kind of new language in a way. Comment tu imagines une poésie du futur hors langage?
I imagine poetry on a very deep vibration of that we can, perhaps in the future, we can be more and more, we can become more and more precise on connection, because you know what technology and digitality learn to us is that we can, the technology show us how we can be connected with machine technique, but we can also use this experience and we put off technology and we say, okay, imagine if all internet connection fall down, what we will keep of that? What this memory of when we send messages and telephone and video conference, if all of this stop, perhaps we will have a memory and we can work with this feeling, you know, and develop language and mental connection. I don't know. And perhaps, yeah, I imagine things like that, or perhaps we can watch the sign on the sky and wind, and we can feel a kind of universal language.
Yeah.
Perhaps like, there is some people who they know that Amazonian Indian, or some shaman in Siberia, in Mongolia, or in Africa. They know to communicate and to understand language, very infra languages, you know. So I think we have to really think about that.
I really think that language is a virus in a way. It's like a really complex system, and definite and multiply himself and other bodies, you know. And how I work a lot with autistic people, and I know it's people like they vaccinate against language, and against the virus.
Yeah.
You know, and you try to transmit the virus. They say, no, I don't believe in your virus. I'm not give a damn of your language, you know. And then I understand at that moment that the poet is going beyond that moment. It's just like in the moment when you are discovering that something really like you say, or like a pattern, like a given pattern of the reality of sociality, I don't know, normality, and we like make a split or a squeeze, or like a different movement and a alteration of genetical language. I don't know.
Yeah.
To change a letter in the genome of your, you know, the pattern. And that is why I think that autistic like people, they're really like safe of that kind of language. They're like, and when they come inside the language, because they feel themselves free to go inside.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
When they feel that the other one is in silence. I don't know. Dirk, what do you think about it? Dirk question.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot of things right now. First is you're all talking about poetry. Are you actually all poets, really? So that's a very interesting question. And what is this thing called poetry? It's something I always question myself. Is what I'm doing, is this really poetry? Why do I call it poetry? And especially, of course, if I use a lot of technology with it, what happens with it? Is it rather music? Is it rather art? Or is it rather something natural, something which is pure nature? So that's one of the questions I had. And of course, the other thing is very interesting what you just said, Martin, is working with autistic people. I did that too. So this is really interesting, even though some of them, they work with language. So it's possible, but I think they have a completely different approach to that. But I think it's important to focus on this. You use technology to focus on the things that don't work properly. For me, that's important, I would say, and not to perfectionate anything, or to make it bigger or more perfect visually or audibly or whatever, but to use the mistakes. And I'm a little bit afraid that technology will come to a point when it is so perfect that it's really hard to find mistakes in there, and that is some point that worries me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Felipe,
I was thinking, because I also have this idea, and it's funny to know that we're crossing themes that we have commented in earlier sessions, but with different people. So, and yeah, I have the same question that Dirk is making. And also I see it in a very different way with Martina, although we share so much things, but for example, I don't like to think myself as a poet, or even I like having fun of the idea of the poet like this, because sometimes it can be a very funny character, a poet. But at the same time, I'm always thinking more than I'm working with language and text, for example. I like to think more that I work with text. It's more neutral. Of course, I'm not that silly. Of course, I know that that can be inscribed in poetry or music, depending also not only in what we think about it. I mean, you can think whatever, but the spectators or the readers can think whatever they like. So I can say lots of times this is not poetry, but people would perceive it as poetry also. So it's working in that relationship. But yeah, I mean, I try not to frame it that way, and maybe I'm more conservative. I usually think of poetry more related to text, and lots of times I have this doubt if we are really making like sound poetry, and in which way it can be labeled as poetry, or if it's not pure music and whatever. I mean, I have had this sensation playing with Martin a lots of times, that we start maybe thinking as music, but during the process we maybe think that are making music, or maybe he thinks we're doing poetry and I think we're doing music, and it flips. I don't know. It's interesting to be always thinking about those boundaries or labels, those classifications, as long as they're not a limit, of course.
Yeah, that kind of.
I want.
Sorry.
No, Dirk, I was just going to say that your question about if you're worried about technology being too perfect, I think it takes one person to use technology wrong, to use the perfect technology wrong for the new thing to happen. So I understand about technology continuing to develop, but people are people. And I think that it's a matter of time before somebody makes that change, and then somebody in the audience or somebody looking at that mistake makes that into the new communication, the new art or the new poem or whatever it is. But technology is.
It gets more difficult.
And maybe as it gets more difficult, we get more simpler. You know, there's a trade-off maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what do you say, the other people that they talk, like Guillermo, Tarané, Carlos Soto Roman, Ana Maria. What do you think about that? Dorn Pittinger? Guillermo, ¿qué piensas? No, but you have to, yeah.
Pienso mucho porque no entiendo nada del inglés, entonces me la paso pensando qué estarán hablando. Pero bueno, quería participar, al menos que sea la primera vez de participar y empezar a estar todos los miércoles. Les agradezco la invitación y no sé en qué consiste, ¿qué tiempo tiene ya el grupo?
Llevamos como 20 años. Todos los miércoles, hace 20 años nos juntamos aquí.
Hace del 2000, mirá qué alejado que estaba, che, bueno.
No, hace ya el número 10, la emisión de libro, ¿no?
Bien.
Felipe, you have to open your mic. Felipe, your mic is...
Yeah. Guillermo was saying that, well, he's in Córdoba, Argentina. He was saying that he has think a lot of things while we were talking because he doesn't understand English, so he's been thinking freely, whatever. But I know that Guillermo speaks French very well, so he can add something. And he was asking how long have we been meeting in this chat? So I think it's number 10, this one. And I don't know, Carlos, Ana Maria, everyone wants to say something about all this we're talking.
Hey, I was thinking about boundaries, the thing you were saying, and also kept thinking about Edwin said. I don't know, it seems to me that it depends a lot where the platform you use, right? I mean, obviously, if you kind of like work on something and you present it from like, I don't know, like using a community or a certain platform, it would affect the label somehow. I mean, if you're presenting sound poetry in an environment that is just formed by musicians, probably that thing it's not going to be understood as such, you know. So and then I guess it comes like the reception of the public. They will label your art or your way of expression the way they understand it. So maybe
they say it's music badly played. the musician, yeah.
You know, badly played on purpose or not. And I think we had this at some point. We had this conversation with Robert Fitterman, right? Or I think Rob Fitterman said something about this. Like, for example, if you present something, if you publish like in a press house, like only publish poetry, something that maybe is not perceived or it doesn't look like poetry, it would be labeled as that, and maybe you would be like testing and questioning the boundaries and the definition of that thing. It's an interesting exercise, I think. To try, I at least I try to do that from poetry, always to be exploring the limits of poetry within my own work. Try to be constantly questioning myself: is this poetry? Does this qualify? And and also I agree with you. It's very annoying when you present something and like no, you know, this is not poetry. I don't know. Maybe it is. Poetry? Maybe it's not.
How you can like? What is poetry, you know? For us? What is? How you can say in a moment that's poetry or that not? You know, like
it could be multiple things. That's the challenging part of it. Yeah.
And at the same time, I think like in poetry, at the same time, has not like normal limits in a way. I don't know, like, you know, like that is why concrete poetry, or how Hortense said, make like natural land concrete poetry and the technology kind of poetry. What is the boredom of poetry? You know
you know, I think as many other things in other realms, poetry is also evolving, and what we consider as a poem or the elements that a good poem or a proper poem could or should have, like I don't know, centuries ago, they're not the same now. So it's all about movement, you know. It's all about like constant changing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for me, what we can define as poetry is, for me, it's always what it's at the wrong place, you know. And I think poetry at every time create a new form, because what creates some poet, what's not what it was admit, you know. And when Shakespeare, I just hear a radio broadcast this morning about the sonnet of Shakespeare, and this sonnet was on stage, and what's they call poetry, it was theater. And so for me, poetry is always like that now. When we put some poetry on a music festival, everybody will say, oh, okay, it's bad music, but it's poetry, because it's not it's something that you can define precisely. And when you publish some text, if you want to call it poetry, it's poetry. If you expose some I don't know, some visual poem on a exhibition of you know, of text design, it will be so different. And yeah, sometimes when you see in a contemporary art exhibition, there is an academic contemporary art, and sometimes I saw something different or very strange, and sometimes I'm saying, okay, this is poetry for me, because it's not at the good place. It's always something who change boundary or move boundaries, and for me it's that. And it's also, for me, to make poetry, to make sound, and not to be musician. It's make movement with your body, and you are not a dancer, but you make things with technology, but you are not a big programmer and etc., you know. And when I saw Martin doing performance, I always say, oh my God, what this mess it will. I don't know if it will be working. I have always a big tension. I say, oh Martin, what are you doing? But it worked, you know. It's so magic, really. And I say, okay, he do it. He's doing it. And for me, it's like that. It's poetry.
I think of it, but because always I need your help. Like, you know, I remember Felipe sometimes. Like really at the last time, you know.
Attempt was not to speak French. That was all. No.
Sorry.
What?
It wasn't the poetry. It was just your attempt not speaking French. You said, huh?
I don't understand the joke.
I don't know.
I was trying not to speak French because I couldn't. Therefore, I did the performance without a word.
Yeah. No, but I think, yeah, Hortense talk about some like moment I make poetry, and I prepare a lot, you know, the thing to make it. But just like before to go to stage, I try to forget everything. You know? Like I put myself in a current empty state of mind, and go just like to things happens or not. And always I love that moment, because I like Hortense or Felipe or George, people like Edwin, people like performing around me, or dear Carlos, Ana Maria, they know that moment, like we are like a collective spirit, that the things appear, because something will appear. We don't know what will happen. It's a kind of little bit of like the completely improvised, no, imprévu. How do you say imprévu in English? Like unexpected thing that will happen in that moment, and open my mind like a poet to receive that connection, that transmission of poetry. And I think I cannot write alone, because I'm just like a part of a group, of a collective things. And now when I saw when I listened You know, that kind of fast repetition radio sense from another galaxy that we received since 5-6 years ago. We have like, I don't know the same in English, it's FSB, like fast stars, I don't know. And they receive like every 128 days and signal like Morse language, you know, kind of like every 128 days we receive that from a galaxy in the constellation of Sagittarius. And then is that language, that poetry, is that just like gravitation? It's just physical? What do you think, Hortense? Tu compris?
J'ai pas compris la fin.
En fait, il y a un phénomène qui s'appelle émission des radios, des étoiles qui émettent des radios signaux, tu vois. Chaque 128 jours, reçoit des signaux, tu vois, et après ça s'arrête pendant 128 jours. Et tous les scientifiques, chercheurs de l'astrobiologie, de l'astrolangage, il y a un nom pour ça. Hein. Comment ça s'appelle
L'astronomie.
Oui, mais tu vois, de la recherche d'un langage astral, tu vois. Il y a un langage qui vient de notre étoile, parce qu'ils ne vont pas parler anglais, les mecs, tu vois.
Non.
Tu vois, ou je sais pas, ou les bactéries. Mais là, tu vois, par exemple, les codes génétiques des virus, là, on a un truc. Dior, par exemple, il travaille pas mal avec les codes génétiques, tu vois. On a un petit groupe qui a travaillé avec les codes génétiques. What do you think about it, George? About the work with the genetical code of virus? Have you ever tried something before or not?
Should I answer?
No, you can make a question for us. You're like...
I have no idea, actually.
Because I know you...
I was just thinking, I was way behind your thoughts. So I'm still processing the older parts about poetry and magic. Maybe I thought the poetry part is maybe the thing we don't understand. And everything we don't understand and what we're doing that just happens somehow with what we're doing accidentally. And that maybe is the poetry part, but also it's the image we have because it just sounds better than just to work with text. Now, this is something that I always think about. It's the image part, you know, and it sounds so much better if I say I'm a poet, if I say I'm a text worker, you know. And people will like me much more for that. And yeah, but about the genetic code as poetry, yeah, it's probably also poetry, but especially because we don't understand it.
Yeah, but because I think maybe poetry you have like that side of from text, from sound, from genetic art, from vision. You know, poetry is not like just limited to the text. It's not limited to one language. Poetry, I think that is George.
Yeah, maybe it's a question what you think about what is language at all. So everything can be language or can be interpreted as language if you want.
What I try in poetry, and this maybe extends to all kinds of poetry, is to use things that we know, like words, voice, whatever, and express something that cannot be expressed. Like there's this famous saying by Ludwig Wittgenstein, whereof you cannot speak, thereof you have to be silent. I don't know if that's the correct English quote, but I only know the German one. But in a way he's wrong, because we can say things or try to say things even with words, and you don't understand them fully, but you can maybe, I don't know, try to, and that's a little bit similar to magic, because magic is actually something we don't understand. It's things happening we don't understand, and we call that magic. And that happens in poetry, maybe in all arts, but in poetry it's even more strange, because we use words and similar means they are meant to communicate something. And if you're really good with words, then you can say things very precise things. But what we try with poetry is not to be that precise, or maybe even be more precise than what can be said. And that's the thing we try to work with stuff that we think we understand, but we do it in a way that we cannot understand, but maybe even understand better than what could be said. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'd like to add something about this idea of calling yourself a poet or a writer or a text. A couple of years ago, I found at least the definition, and I would like to use it, like when you say I'm a music producer, to talk about a text producer, someone who produces text in different ways, in different shapes. And I like very much because it's like taking away all the lyric part of that. Of course, that's a posture, and maybe in 1 year I will think something completely different. But what happens to me with all this definition of poetry we're doing, at least in my case, is that for me, those are the definitions of art in general. I mean, I don't like making a difference between poetry and other arts. In fact, I'd like to think of poetry in a broader kind of manifestations with the idea of art. I mean, in that way, I don't think poetry is different from other arts. It's just one kind of art, one tradition, a set of procedures and materials. But of course, I mean, you can use this idea of poetry like what you're using, and we'll get it exactly, like this idea of something that's beyond the normal or useful possibilities of language or even whatever. But in that way, I think is what at least one of the ideas I have around art, using things differently, achieving different kinds of messages, more ambiguous, sometimes darker, or sometimes even more direct than daily language, whatever. But this is the idea I get. And for example, what Hortense said when she goes to a museum and she saw something that thought of it like poetry. In my way of seeing, it's like that's where art in more general is. And yeah.
Was a question, Felipe, or
no, a commentary, but you can totally disagree, of course. But if you do, I will cut you off, and I will keep talking with myself only. So, like for an hour.
Yeah, I don't know, but you know, if you like feel all the try to rehearsal about communication with all the multiverse things, you arrive to that kind of frequencies, you know, what kind of waves, what kind of like in which kind of hertz you receive, you know, the emission, and what kind of vibration a microphone can receive in a way. And then, you know, just like that, if you just don't need just to communicate a message or something like that. Oh, it's like just like you're making vibrate, I don't know, planet, a soul, a star, a constellation, an insect. When you save the life of a spider, for example, yesterday I saved the life of a spider when someone wanted to kill it because it said, I detest insects. No, I don't support. And I stayed instead, and she her like a wave, just like the time that I put her in the garden, and I felt that I was communicating with her in a way, you know, like making poetry together, with like the act of like saving a spider in the middle of Paris. It's a poem in a way for I don't know which reader, you know, poetry. I don't know, 5 readers in the multiverse. But anyway, it was really impressive because after that I started at home, and and I read a book of magic and say, well, for like some instruction from magician people, and say what kind of let me say like gifts of communication when you save a spider, you know, like what do you receive from the universe when you save a spider in the middle of the emptiness of the violence of the collectivity of human beings. I don't know. And then I perceive that when you say your tongue, when you are walking around and feeling things and open walls and making different types of things, I think my poetry is like a kind of, I don't know how you say it. It's the only way. When I wake every morning, I say like, yeah, okay, I'm a poet, I can live. If I'm not a poet, I think I could not live in this human world. I feel much more closer from cats than from humans. I don't know. You know, it's like I don't think that poetry is just a text. You know, I think the text in poetry arrives really later than sound in a way. That is that Derrida tried really well in grammatology and some different things, but that all contrast between phonema and graphema, or onoma and logos, that we talked already, you know. Then if we, when we say something, we're like just showing something, or just like in the act of saying that, or pronouncing things, we create at the same time a new universe. You know? Each syllable that we make in poetry state is a new universe. I tried to put myself in that state, and I saw, when I saw you in that moment, Hortense, also when you make performance, and you are like Edwin sent us in the chat a really wonderful moment when you're like really in the middle of that kind of technology and digitals, and you are like with your flesh. Tu vois que tu, enfin, je disais qu'Edwin il a envoyé une vidéo où tu es au milieu d'un truc très digital, très technologique, mais tu bouges avec, et ton corps fait, et ça devient pas seulement abstrait, ou pas seulement masculin, comme tu disais tout à l'heure, tu vois, c'est un mix. Et moi, je sais pas, enfin, je sais pas, mais je pense que c'est les pas maintenant que la femme a le pouvoir dans le monde, dans la poésie, partout, j'espère. Et le prochain pas, tu vois, c'est vraiment la conjonction, tu vois. On dit pas, il y a pas de, ça c'est masculin, ça c'est féminin, ça c'est male, ça c'est male. Et c'est... I translate for those in the just have to go on after later in the edition. When you answer no,
Me?
Yeah, I just like try to talk to you. Because I think that that new kind of idea of poetry, that beyond like that fighting against like males and females, like the kind of conjunction.
Yeah.
But who can bring from the woman now, not from the man. No, we lost that word. You know, the woman is now the moment. How can you imagine that kind of connection of that the two different energies, yin and yang?
Yeah, I think yeah, poetry and art performance and art and can very make disappear this opposition, yeah, between gender. But what I learned is, even when you are in art environment and with people who make school, and we have a big culture and everything, and we have all the intellectual capacity to think about that and to change things. But I think there is some very deep structure that always have to be fighted because we are not new on world, you know. We bring a lot of history, and we have in ourselves our family condition and a lot of things that make determination of ourselves, and it's I think it's a big work we have to do, even in art, and when I think it's possible, and that we can not. I don't want to say during 10 years. I don't. I say I don't be considered like a woman, because for me it was not important. I'm an artist. Okay. It's I work with what the world or the system or people put on me, and like I want to work with words that you know that come from the mediatic sphere, or with words who have words and material who are not pure. That all material are very determined, you know. And so now I say, okay, I'm a woman, but what is a woman? We can transfer what you are a man, but for what? So we can reinvent, and we can invent new way to be a woman, or to be man, or to be nothing, or to be animals, or to be human being, you know. And
yeah, maybe we are just separating men and women to make love together, just like that. to give.
But you can make love with another man, even if you're a man, and you can make love with a tree, or you can make love with.
No, with a tree it's more difficult. But no, but it's like we're the same stuff, but in difference. To like in a moment. Yeah.
Different can create desire. It's true, but other women are also so different than me, you know. So the difference are between everything.
That is true, but I also am interested in when we were talking about the feminist approach to working with technology, because when you're talking about it, you first mentioned nature in terms of your creation, not in general who's doing what. You mentioned nature and the echo of it and being part of it, creating it. Immediately after you mentioned technology as the same way. Do you mean that feminist approach is the approach that takes the nature and technology with the same value as an extension of an experience? Or this is the way, because I know that it is simplistic and we are not going to think a woman, nature, man, machine. But what is the feminist? What is the woman there? What is the role of the woman in creating that technology and her special way of understanding and performing it, using it for you?
I can just speak from my own experience, but I feel that comment on dit Martin en anglais, abîmé, comment on dit abîmé?
Abyss. Or abyss, or abyss.
No, yes, it's like making less like destruct this. Not destructive in a way, but make it more noisy or
alteration.
Alterated in a bad way, like
yeah.
Disintegrate in a way. Like
disintegrated, yeah. I feel that with art I need to repair some kind of injustice or violence, or and that to make creating some performance, it's for me a way to create reparation, to fix some things who has been disintegrated by society, or perhaps masculinity violence or technological violence, you know. And I think we can use technology to really be more strong and more sensible, and to find a way to propose some another approach, another point of view, because I don't. It's really difficult to explain.
Yeah. Tu peux le faire en français.
How you used it? How you? What was your way of communicating these ideas? Was it like something special that you did that we might not be? I'm just just guessing, that thought this makes it different from a male approach, or it just was something ultimately in your mind that we will get there, but we know these are the problems,
Some for me, I don't. When I make a lot of performance with my body with naked, and I have different manners or different way to perform with that. It's not only the same way, and but for me, I don't want to. I think I not make a militant performance, or I don't say women have to be free. The message is not very clear, but I really want to question the point of view of the spectator, of the public, and say, okay. What will be your way to watching me, I want really to answer people about their own way of their own point of view. And when I make different performance, it was so incredible, because the different reaction perhaps can be very opposite. There is some woman say, oh, you use your body, you are naked with technology, you are so dominant. And some other people say, wow, it's great, you seem to be free. So I have the very two reactions. And for me, it was really interesting, because there is no one way to understand. And I say, okay, if people saw that like that, it's your problem, it's their problem. And say, okay, if you see me like that, okay, think about that, it's your problem. And if you see me another way, okay, it's interesting. And for me, it's I really love to create some ambiguity, because to really put people in their own question. So it's yeah. I don't know how to explain, but it's like when you are front of a sculpture or front of you know, the work of Duchamp, and people say, oh, it's art, it's wonderful, and people say, oh, it's not art. And I have the two different reaction like that. So for me, it was interesting.
Maybe it could be lovely, like to finish that meeting. If you like, if we show, and maybe you can comment at the same time the video that you sent to us in the chat.
The Alpha Lab teaser.
You know, the Alpha Lab.
Yeah, it was because we speak about DNA, and it was a big work on the code of language, and the code of language it's the same in the body and the microcosmic world and the microcosmic world and macro dimension. And we work on different different sort of language and codification of body and scientific language. And the purpose, it was the dancer. It was like at the beginning of the performance, it's like material, poor material, and it become a kind of sort of human body, but we don't know if this body was created by genetic code or by poetic code or by scientific code. So it was about the performativity of language to create life.
Maybe if we put the video, like we share the screen, and then you can tell us directly what happened. Si on met la vidéo, tu vois, pour finir, et tu commentes la vidéo, c'est ce qui se passe dans l'image, tu vois.
Like when you see a movie with the comments from the director.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Director cut.
Yeah.
I will put it.
Yeah.
I will show the script.
I wanted to finish on a sound that I live. A sound that I live with me since 1 year ago, and I will finish after, and I will send you this sound. So right. I can just put the video. It's just 2 minutes.
I will put the. Wait a second.
Maybe if you want to share your screen.
Now you can share the screen.
Hortense, tu peux partager ton écran.
Ouais, partager l'écran. Ok. Je peux partager. Alors, hop.
Now you are the owner of all this.
Ok.
All of us.
Ça marche là. You see the black screen?
Yeah, with like a kind of robot.
Yeah, and at the beginning, yeah, this human creature was like this project. It's like an experience in a laboratory. And this body become more and more alive thanks to different energy and code and language.
Instruction de agencement des intensités, programmation Instruction 3. Structuration par mise en forme, vectorisation des contours, glissement des surfaces.
And the voice you can hear, it's like poetry in French, poetry with only instruction and scientific instruction. And it was, we wanted to create poetry with this very rational languages of science, and to transform this this kind of text in poetry. Okay.
Do you want to show us something else?
I can show the complete opposite of my work.
Yes.
It's just okay. The video, the performance I make on partager. Alors. I make different. Comment on dit? Effondrement, falling en anglais.
Like shut down. No, it's like
no.
Fall down, or like yeah. It's a name specific, like when a breakdown, something like that.
Yeah, or the movement to collapse. I think.
Breakdown.
It's a different performance. I name collapsing, and it takes time, so I can advance, and I can. And this in this performance, I make very slow movement, the most slow I can, and it's a movement to explore another time and to be very slow. It's a way to be with the time of mountain or the time of sky and etc. And, I make different. I have a series of his performance in nature. But voilà.
Nice.
And I don't know if the sound I want to make heard for you. It's not a very good register. It's because you speak about autistic people, and I live just front of my window. There is comment on dit une maison de retraite. A house.
In English, Felipe, like casa de jubilación, ¿cómo se llama? Casa de...
a house for retired people.
Yeah, and just front of my window, since 1 year ago, I heard somebody who scream, and it's always there is 2-3 different scream, and it's a scream like people who is mad, who is very senile, you know, in very, very old, and he lose his mind, and he scream and he scream and he scream, and I prepare sound creation with this scream because it's so crazy, and for me it's a scream of death and life, you know. And I don't know if you heard.
The best of Blondie. Or Black Magic.
You heard?
Desireless. No.
No. Huh. It's somebody. It's there is. You can hear some birds, and the scream. The man. I think it's a man. He make ah 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 during hours.
Wow.
You know. And it's so sometimes it makes me crazy. I say no, you always, and sometimes he say ah ah ah, and very during hours and hours. And I say okay, I will make poetry with him. And sometimes my daughter, who is 10 years old, she opened the window and she screamed with with him, and she say ah, and it's like a concert in the street, the street of crazy people. Yeah, I wanted it. It was the sound of of the confinement also for me. Okay, so.
Wow!
Yeah, I say we can all scream.
Yeah, we can finish like everyone screaming.
Let's finish with a last scream, and thanks so much, Hortense, and everyone for participating. So you can direct us the scream.
Yeah.
Yeah. Open your mix. Open your mix.
Open your mix. Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Thank you, everybody.
Great.
Thank you, Martin.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Gracias.
Yeah, we'll take a drink. See you.
Bye.
Bye.